Hi everyone, Veronica Crosier here with Active Southern West Virginia. Joining us today, we have a special guest speaker, Dr. Matthew Fratczak, who's going to be sharing with us a little bit about lifestyle medicine. Before we get into that, would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit more about how you got into your line of work?
Yeah, so my name's Dr. Matthew Fratczak. I'm one of the family medicine residents down in Access Health in Beckley, West Virginia. So I'm almost done with a postgraduate training program where I'll be specializing in family medicine. My wife is in the program as well, and we actually got into lifestyle medicine through a program that she did. She participated in AmeriCorps with a program called Live Healthy Appalachia, which was a physician-backed lifestyle medicine nonprofit. And that kind of piqued our interest in this field of medicine. It's kind of new, up and coming. So that's how we kind of started. And yeah, I'm excited to share a little bit more about it with you guys.
So for someone who has never heard the term lifestyle medicine before, can you tell us a little bit about that? What does that mean?
Yeah, so lifestyle medicine is really the research and the evidence behind how the way we live our life, whether it's the physical activity we participate in, the good habits, the bad habits, and the overall quality of our diet, and how that contributes to chronic disease states, things like diabetes, heart attack, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and even certain types of cancer. Lifestyle medicine really looks to address, what we can do without the use of medication or pharmaceuticals to help address those chronic issues.
And that is so empowering to know that there are things that we can do before we take that step to get medications and that sort of thing mixed into our lifestyles. So you mentioned chronic disease. And at Active Southern West Virginia, we are all about getting people more physically active and also just taking care of their wellness in general. And chronic disease comes up a lot in our work, and we're always trying to look at ways to help prevent that. Right now, the CDC says that about 6 in 10 people in our country are already diagnosed with a chronic disease, and that it makes up about 80% of all healthcare expenses in our country. So when we're thinking about lifestyle medicine, how does that tie into preventing chronic disease?
So that's a really good point you make. And to answer your question, I actually have a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation with a real patient that was diagnosed and treated with using lifestyle medicine. So if you bear with me one second, I'll take you guys through it. So I wanted to take you guys through an actual case of a real patient to see what lifestyle medicine can do for you. So here we have a 63-year-old man. He's been previously diagnosed by his doctor with high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and cholesterol. He shows up at this physician's office. He presents for routine lab work. They go ahead, take his blood to evaluate the state of these diseases. His blood sugar comes back at 524, and the normal upper range is 130. So he's almost 4 times over that limit. His hemoglobin A1C, which is a 3-month average of his blood sugars, is 11.1%. Anything above 5.7% is going to be a type 2 diabetic. His total cholesterol is 283. Really, we want it to be below 170. And his blood pressure is also up at 132 over 66. And his BMI is actually normal. The medicines that he's on lisinopril, which is a blood pressure medicine. Really, he's on 3 blood pressure medicines: lisinopril, hydrochlorothiazide, and amlodipine. He's on a cholesterol medicine, and he's also on 3 type 2 diabetes medicine. So he's on metformin, glipizide, and actually gives himself 10 units of insulin injections daily. So the doctor prescribes a whole food plant-based diet that excludes all animal products as well as refined sugars and other processed foods, and encourages an unlimited amount of whole plant-based foods, as well as encouraging the patient to exercise 15 minutes twice a day. So the patient spends the next 16 weeks eating a whole food plant-based diet that looks much like what you see on the picture here. When he shows back up at the doctor 16 weeks later, this is what happens. He gets off his hydrochlorothiazide, a blood pressure medicine. He stops his amlodipine, also a blood pressure medicine. He stops the glipizide, a diabetes medicine. He stops the insulin, another diabetes medicine, and he takes the lisinopril down, the one blood pressure medicine that he has left, from 40 milligrams down to 5, which is one of the lowest doses. This is what happens with his blood work after 16 weeks of lifestyle medicine intervention. His blood sugar goes from 524 to an average of 140. His hemoglobin A1C, or his 3-month average blood sugar reading, goes from 11.1% down to 6.3%, which is very well controlled. His total cholesterol goes from 283 to 138. His blood pressure goes from 132 over 66 to 125 over 60. And one thing to note is all of this happens even though we've stopped several medicines. So to summarize, after 16 weeks of lifestyle medicine, this patient went from 3 blood pressure medicines down to 1 blood pressure medicine at the very lowest dose. He went from 3 diabetes treatments, 2 different types of pills, and 1 set of insulin injections to just 1 oral medication and no insulin whatsoever. And the best thing overall is that his total outcomes and state of these chronic diseases actually improved despite the lower medicine use.
That is an incredible case study. So just to reiterate, that is a real person that you've seen who basically had been diagnosed with diabetes, had high blood pressure, and just by adding a little bit of physical activity into his daily life, 15 minutes twice a day, and switching to a more whole foods, plant-based diet, we saw all of his levels pretty much go back to normal, and he was able to remove almost all the medication that he was taking in just a handful of months. That's incredible. So when you mention whole foods and plant-based diets, can you give us a little bit of an idea of what that kind of meal plan looks like? What kind of foods we're talking about there?
Yeah, let me go ahead and take you guys through a couple more slides. I'm going to address what a whole food plant-based diet looks like, and I'll go through some examples and further details. So what is a whole food plant-based diet? So a whole food plant-based diet is one of the most powerful tools we have in lifestyle medicine. It's really a healthy plant-based diet. It's maximizing the consumption of nutrient-dense plant foods. These are things that are minimally processed. So things like white flour and these are minimally processed foods. Things like white flour and refined sugars are cut out. Oils are largely cut out or minimized, and animal foods, such as including dairy products and eggs, are minimized and or cut out. It really encourages people to take in as much as they want, and this is a big key part of this. Is it's not calorie restricted in the sense that you're limited to how much you can eat of the right foods. So you really can go ahead and eat as much as you want of unprocessed or minimally processed vegetables, whether they're cooked or raw. Fruits, beans, peas, lentils, whole grains, soybeans, seeds, and nuts. And really, again, to reiterate, when you're eating the right foods and using this lifestyle medicine approach, you don't have to worry about how much food you're eating. And that's part of the reason that this is so sustainable. So to kind of take you guys through what this might look like. And I just worked up a couple examples here. This isn't, 100% what you have to do. These are just some examples. So you can have, a healthy fruit and nut oatmeal. Really consists of, a whole grain oatmeal that's minimally or completely unsweetened, and it's just got some fruit and nuts as sweetening on top. And it can be made with water or plant-based milk, like a unsweetened almond milk or an unsweetened soy milk. So that's just one example of breakfast. For lunch, one example would be a black bean, corn, and avocado salad. And this includes tomatoes, jalapenos, and tangy vinaigrette. So by no means does it have to be anything boring, or are you restricted to just eating, plain salads day in, day out to do this. And for dinner, one example I came up with is a black bean and beet burger on a 100% whole wheat bun. And you could make something like this in your own home. It really doesn't require any kind of special skills, just a little bit of time and effort and some very basic kitchen skills. And you could serve something like this with, some homemade whole baked sweet potato wedges if you want. and really have, a traditional style dinner that's just a lot healthier. So I also kind of wanted to backtrack a little bit. You had mentioned, chronic disease states and some of the things that a whole food plant-based diet can treat. So it can treat heart disease, and it can not just prevent the development of heart disease and heart attacks, but it can actually reverse heart disease once it happens. And there's several studies out there that show this. Type 2 diabetes, so people that follow a whole food plant-based diet have significantly lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes. But there's also several studies out there that show that you can gain better control of your type 2 diabetes after already having developed it on a whole food plant-based diet. Of course, it can control high blood pressure, it can control high cholesterol. It also lowers the risk of certain cancers like breast cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer, and even some GI cancers. And I think that the biggest thing about whole food plant-based diet is really feeling better overall. So improved mental health, overall improved physical and mental well-being, and prolonged longevity. Because it's not just about living longer or living to be 100, but it's really about living a high quality life for the time that you're here. So that's kind of a whole food plant-based diet in a nutshell. And I'm just going to go back to you real quick, Veronica.
All right. Well, first of all of those meals looked incredible. I am not a chef, and I like that there are so many whole foods that you can just do raw and still come up with a simple and really gorgeous looking meal. But then like the bean and beet burger, there's still really fun ideas for people who do like to cook and be a little more adventurous at home. So that's wonderful. We'll include the links to those recipes with this video. You can find it in the video description, so you can try some of those at home. So for the athlete or the aspiring athlete, or for the person who just wants to get a little more active, how does this lifestyle medicine and whole food plant-based eating, how does that affect someone who's trying to be a little more active?
So that's actually a great question, and I'm going to follow it up with a few more slides I'd like to share with you guys. So one of the biggest things that I hear as far as concerns when it comes to a whole food plant-based diet is, well, you're focusing so much on these plant-based foods in their whole food form. What about the protein? What about the meat? What about, when you're not eating milk, eggs, dairy, and meat, and that's not constituting a large part of your diet? Can you be an athlete, or are you just going to be weak and not able to perform athletically at all? So, that's a common concern I hear. So I wanted to address that a little bit. So protein in athletes. So the average recommended amount of protein per day is about 56 to 70 grams of protein. For the average person. Athletes can take in a little bit, but you can absolutely and easily achieve this on a whole food plant-based diet. So I wanted to share a couple examples of professional and amateur athletes that are whole food plant-based and perform really, really well. So the first one is actually Kyrie Irving. You may be familiar with this guy. He's an NBA Celtics point guard. Nike actually asked Kyrie Irving how he was able to drill basketball so fast, and his response was, and you can look this quote up, simple, a plant-based diet. So he not only follows a whole food plant-based diet, but actually attributes it to his athletic success. Another athlete, pretty amazing athlete I wanted to bring up, a professional ultra runner by the name of Dr Corbett. Dr Corbett is actually one of only 4 people in the whole world that has run 100 miles more than 100 times. And she's also completed over 250 ultra marathons, all on a whole food plant-based diet. This guy's pretty amazing. Patrick Bubamayan, and I'm not sure if I'm saying his name correctly, but he was actually named Germany's strongest man in 2011. There's a pretty amazing video out there of him actually flipping a car. And he currently holds the world record for the heaviest yoke carried. He actually picked up 1,224 pounds and carried it about 10 meters or 30 feet. And he currently holds the world record for that. And he is another whole food plant-based athlete. Another one is Venus Williams. You may be familiar with her. She's actually a world famous tennis athlete. She holds 7 Grand Slam titles, 14 Grand Slam women's doubles titles. She's won Wimbledon women's singles 5 times and has 4 Olympic gold medals. And she's actually a whole food plant-based athlete as well. And then one amateur athlete I wanted to throw out there. She actually lives right here in West Virginia. Her name's Dr Fratczak. She's a West Virginian-based ultra runner. She's completed 100-mile ultra marathons and actually a 200-mile ultra marathon, all on a whole food plant-based diet. And I'm actually married to her, so I just wanted to share that. So I just wanted to share some of those amazing athletes. This is something that I personally apply to my own life as well as professional life. For anybody that wants to check out some additional resources and wants to see the evidence back there, or just wants more information, I have included a couple of resources here. So for those people that really want to see the evidence and really want to dive into the numbers and see the research articles, there's a great book out there called The China Study. It's actually out of Cornell University. This study is actually the accumulation of over 20 years of research. And it's been called the most comprehensive study of nutrition ever conducted. So it's a really great book if you're into that kind of thing. If you prefer to watch a video documentary, there's a great one out there with Dr. Colin T. Campbell called Forks Over Knives. It's a video documentary you can rent, but it's also a book, and it's a cookbook, and they actually have a regularly published magazine that you can see here over on the right hand of the screen. Another great resource to check out. What the Health is a Netflix documentary that's out there, pretty easily accessible, about 2 hours long, pretty easy watch. And then if you want to hear a doc specializing in lifestyle medicine, really dive into more evidence behind there, there's an educational website that has a ton of videos out there. It's called nutritionfacts.org. It's run by Dr. Greger. It's a nonprofit that just seeks to educate people more about lifestyle medicine, and he's actually got a pretty great TED Talk out there too. So
I think what I've loved most about this is that the lifestyle medicine can apply to pretty much anyone at any state in their life. For anyone who is maybe contemplating a lifestyle change, are there any words of encouragement or a place that you'd recommend them start?
Absolutely. And one thing, there's actually a few things I wanted to say about it. So if this is something that you're interested in, you want to apply into your own life, I encourage you, step one, go out and do your own research. See what's out there. Make sure you're looking at valid, trustworthy sources out there. Look at people coming out of academic institutions, look at studies, look at things that have actually been published out there. Try to avoid blogs and those sorts of things. Step two is, definitely talk to your primary care provider about all this. Find somebody who's supportive. Don't come off of medicines on your own. That's one thing I'm going to stress. Absolutely, apply lifestyle medicine changes to your own life, but do not come off of any medicines on your own. Definitely closely work with your primary care provider to do that. We definitely want to keep people safe. So that's a big thing. And the third thing I'm going to mention, this can be a small change. This can be a huge change for you. If you want to take a little bit of what you applied today and just try a few meals, that's a great idea, and I think that's a great first step. If you're like, hey, I'm going to check out some of these resources and I'm sold and I want to do this, and you want to jump in 100%, I encourage you to do that. Again, just work with your primary care provider, especially if you have any underlying medical issues. So that's really the big things I'm going to say. Do you have any other questions?
No, this has been incredibly informative and really encouraging. And I'm personally curious to check out several of those resources. And thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Fratczak. I think that you definitely shared a little something for everyone who watched this today.
Well, it was a pleasure talking to you, Veronica. I think you guys do awesome work at Active Southern West Virginia. And I look forward to speaking more with you guys. So thank you for everything.
Wonderful. And for those of you watching, you can find some of those links and resources that we shared here today in the video description. So be sure to check those out, and thanks for watching.